a lot more potential roster turnover going forward. But yeah, we can move on to the next phase. So obviously, because the 49ers traded up for the third pick, a lot of questions around will they keep Jimmy Garoppolo? Is this a move to get a quarterback? They have said that Jimmy is their guy. I'll just start. Personally, I don't believe that. Once again, we talked a few podcasts ago about leverage. Remember when the Eagles, I think it was like a month after the season, they're like, oh, Carson Wentz is our guy. Or we believe we're keeping Carson Wentz. There's just been multiple examples of, not only that. I mean, remember when Odell got signed and then David Gunn's like, we didn't re-sign Odell Beckham to trade him. And guess what? They traded him that same offseason. So, it's checks bounce, things like that. No, not literally, but, words are just words, and this is a business, as they always say. So I personally think Jimmy G will be on the move, and the reason that the 49ers made this move this early was to, take the third pick before someone else does, and which we'll talk about later. But also, okay, now we have a month or so to get rid of Jimmy G, or if not, they mentioned it on Football Talk, great point, where they can hold on to Jimmy G and it can be like a Teddy Bridgewater situation from a few years ago. Maybe a quarterback gets hurt in training camp, starter. Hey, we have Jimmy G, we'll trade him to you, and boom. So, but yeah, personally, I think Jimmy G's, his time is up, unfortunately, for at least as a 49er starter. Maybe they don't end up trading him. Maybe they can't find a deal and they don't want to just cut him loose, and they just keep him as a backup or compete for the starting job. But I don't think, I'll say this, a year from now, I do not think he'll be on the 49ers, or at least the 49ers starter. But what about you, John?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the brilliance of the timing by Shanahan and John Lynch here is that, obviously, like you said, they beat out another team potentially getting to this draft pick. They did it early. It gives them a lot of time to evaluate quarterbacks because they know this is the pick we have. Obviously, I think most people are at the point where Trevor Lawrence is gone. He's going to be a Jaguar. Zach Wilson might fall. If he does, that's the pick. If not, here's who we're going to take. And they have plenty of time. They can evaluate pro days, all this kind of stuff, which it's come out that the Niners are going to take a quarterback. We officially know that. So there's not any speculation on Jimmy G and, potentially him being the guy for, a long time. So, but also, like I said, the genius behind this move is that it almost maybe raises Jimmy's value a little bit because maybe there's some other team who wanted to get this pick, doesn't feel as comfortable with the quarterback that they might be able to get now because they know most likely 3 quarterbacks are off the board after those first 3 picks. Maybe just 2 if the Jets, do something crazy. But even then, if the Jets weren't going to take a quarterback, I feel like they would do a similar thing and trade back because we know there's some teams that would absolutely trade up. Anyway, yeah, so most teams are going to know, okay, 3 quarterbacks off the board. Even thinking about, which I know this is a popular rumor, who knows if it's true, but imagine the Patriots, right? Imagine they thought maybe they could sneak in, get a guy like a Mac Jones in those teens. Well, now all of a sudden 3 quarterbacks going off the board early. There's speculation that Mac Jones is the Niners pick. If that happens, it's very easy to see a Justin Fields, maybe even a Trey Lance going within that top 10. If those 3 quarterbacks, Lawrence, Wilson, and Jones, are the first 3 in those first 3 picks, I 100% believe that Justin Fields probably goes by 8, which would be the Carolina Panthers pick. So all of a sudden, if you're a team like the Patriots, you don't have an option to get one of those top quarterbacks. Now you're looking at maybe Trey Lance if he falls, maybe a Kyle Trask if he's there. So now you're starting to weigh, is it worth getting one of those guys, or is it worth getting a Jimmy Garoppolo, who's already a proven commodity in the league? We know what he is, what he can do. So, yeah, I think this gives them plenty of time to find a trade. But I think also, like I said, I think it could potentially raise his trade value because a lot of teams know Deshaun Watson might not happen. Now we might not be able to get this quarterback because he's off the board by 3. Maybe Jimmy G's our best option.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I was going to ask you, so is Justin Fields, a little off topic, a guy that Matt Rule wanted in his offense? 'Cause I'm not sure what type of offense. Is he like the dual threat guy, or is he more of the pocket passer, polished passer kind of guy?
So Matt Rule is interesting because he's one of those guys who has like complete control over the team. and that's what he wanted. Is he wanted to have sort of a Bill Belichick-esque role, because in college, I mean, that's what you do. You build the entire program. But Matt is also a very strong defensive-minded coach. And so, like when he came to Baylor, Baylor was renowned for running the high octane, deep passes, spread offense, right? Just the typical Big 12 explosive offense. When he came, a lot of things changed. Not as much as I think some people would wanted, but it was a lot more of a pro style offense. And I don't know how much of that was him or how much of that was the offensive coordinators that we had. I don't know. But the one thing I do know is that he has Joe Brady, who was the LSU offensive coordinator when Joe Burrow was there. They won a national championship. I'm a very big fan of Joe Brady. I think he's one of the young, innovative minds. And so realistically, I would say yes. I think that Justin Fields and the weapon that he could be, I think that they would have enough faith in Joe Brady if they were, evaluating Fields. I think they would have enough faith in Joe Brady to say you can use anybody, and especially if you have a quarterback like Fields, who we've seen he's run. I think he ran like a 4.4 unofficially though, so we don't know his actual 40 time. But regardless, he's fast. So if you have a creative coordinator like Joe Brady, you can use that as a weapon to your advantage. So yeah, it's not as much to me as a Matt Rule preference, but more of Joe Brady, and will they be able to work with that? So I would say yes. I think they could use a Justin Fields.
I was just asking because I feel like if in terms of trade destinations for Jimmy Garoppolo, that could be one. Not obviously not for the 8th overall pick, second, third, and then maybe you use that first round pick. I'm not sure if a tight end's valuable on their offense, and then maybe that's where you go get your Kyle Pitts or a tackle or something of the sort. Obviously not receiver; they're set at receiver and running back on offense, but it opens up what you do with your first round pick, especially if, like we mentioned, those first three guys. And once again, they're my top three. Those first three guys, like you mentioned, go off the board on the first three picks, and maybe they're not so sure on Justin Fields or something of the sort. You get its own commodity in Jimmy G. I mean, besides the fact he's been injured, he seems to be the locker room likes him in San Francisco, so he can be a good culture, a good veteran guy for the offense, especially a young offense that's rebuilding, and just the locker room in general. Because as some might remember. Completely drafted all defensive picks last year in the draft, so he could be a good leader and that sort too for the Panthers. And there's one more team I thought of. It wasn't New England. It'll come back to me another time. But that was one trade destination for them for Jimmy G. At least the only real one I'm trying to look at. I mean, maybe Houston, depending on how things pan out. But they already have Tyrod Taylor, so it's tough to see. I mean,
an interesting team could be, which I haven't seen any rumors to back this up at all, but imagine Washington. I mean,
that was the other team, because I know we all love Fitzy, but let's be real. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's good in shortest amount of spaces. You make him so yeah, especially with and hopefully he doesn't get injured again. But if Jimmy G with his injury history maybe goes to Washington, beats a starter. Well, kind of similar to the San Francisco Super Bowl. You have a good defense, got a solid receiver McLaurin, got a good run game, good O-line. Jimmy can still manage the game, and he won't lose you games. And then if he does somehow get hurt or not playing well, you have Ryan Fitzpatrick. You have Taylor Heineke if you even feel that Fitzy's struggling. And once again, still a very good defense and all that sort. So yes, that was the other option. Thank you. That was the other place. And once again, Washington. Probably will trade like second or third round pick and still have their first round pick. Maybe go get a receiver. So now they have someone opposite of McLaurin, and they also have Logan Thomas there. So yes, that was the other place that I wanted to mention. But we'll go on to the